Marv Albert joining us here once again on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Marv?
Good, Rich. How you doing? It was certainly the unexpected last night.
Well, I mean, did you see anything pregame, anything coming out of the locker room, maybe at half, body language, anything that gave an indication something like this might be on the way?
You know, people always try to measure, they'll watch warm-ups, whatever the sport, and try to get some kind of indication, but it's so rare that you really can actually see anything. And all we saw were the Celtics walked in kind of with their heads hanging low. Brad Stevens is always up. We chatted with him before the game, and told us what basically he was going to tell the players, etc. But to see a game like that, where particularly with LeBron having his worst playoff game perhaps ever, I know he's had even lower numbers. There was a 7-point game while with Miami in the playoffs. That was his playoff career low. But he just didn't seem engaged. I know at the start, and we saw with Kyrie Irving in Game 2, or in Game 1, I should say, where everyone else was into it, and Kevin Love was on fire, and Irving was playing well. So he kind of laid back. But you kept thinking that when it got close in the fourth quarter last night, that, okay, now LeBron's going to start in and, drive to the bucket and start throwing up threes, but he just never got into it. I think it's just hard even for a guy like LeBron to just turn it on.
Well, I mean, and it can't be that he's, tired, because, I mean, the amount of rest that this team has had in the playoffs, and certainly games 1 and 2 certainly looked like the rust had been knocked off if it existed at all. What did you see that the Celtics did? Maybe you just tip your cap to something that Brad Stevens and the rest of that team did defensively that you didn't see in games 1 and 2.
I mean, there's no question. I don't use the word great, lightly. I mean, he, obviously did it at Butler, and he's done a wonderful job with Boston. But I thought, and I said it on the telecast, of course, the Celtics would have preferred had Isaiah Thomas been available. But I thought without Thomas on the floor, aside from the fact that the Celtic defense was better, I thought that the Cavs, who were trapping and double-teaming and the new basketball word blitzing, really made it difficult for Thomas. And I thought without that energy on the part of Cleveland, I thought their sense of urgency wasn't the same. They were flying all over the court against Isaiah. And now you had a normal lineup, because Isaiah Thomas, when not hurt, is a brilliant player. I mean, he was, had an incredible year. But at his size, I know he's listed at 5'8", 5'9". I think maybe he's 5'7". He is really small, and it changes the game. Sometimes, in the Cavaliers' case, it changed the game to their benefit. And, Tyronn Lue, who had been saying all during the course of the last couple of weeks where the Cavaliers were struggling, that you'll see our defense will turn on in the playoffs, and as it turns out, it did. Although I thought that actually the Cavaliers, who were so poor defensively in the last month and a half, actually emerged in the playoffs at the defensive end. Although people forget they had, that first series against Indiana was not easy, and they were a C.J. Miles jump shot away in Game 1 from losing to the Pacers. So they got better. They evolved as the series continued on. But I thought they just didn't have the same kind of activity. LeBron was, for whatever reason, was not, I don't know if he was ill, People were saying that after the game, because it's so unusual to see him not play at a high level.
Marv Albert, who's calling the Eastern Conference Finals, and we'll have Game 4 tomorrow beginning at 8 Eastern on TNT, and now a Game 5 from Boston, joining me here from Cleveland on the Rich Eisen Show. And the conversation out of Boston already is how expendable is Isaiah Thomas now that there's a first overall selection, which the Celtics can use to perhaps get Thomas's replacement. There's a 9-figure decision coming for the Celtics involving his deal that's coming, whether it's max or not. How much was last night, do you think, sustainable, Marv?
Well, I this is a team, I think what we're looking at right now will not be the roster that we see opening day next season. So I think there are so many possibilities because Danny Ainge, the vice president of operations, has a lot of possibilities with that number one pick, which he can either take or they could trade. And they have, I think that it's a very strong roster. There are pieces that you can move, and I think they have a decision on Isaiah Thomas because, as you mentioned, the kind of money that he would eventually be looking for. He has another year, but I could see where they might go in another direction. Not because of what happened last night, but I think just in terms of how they want to play the game and have perhaps a more conventional point guard, whether it's Fultz or Ball or whatever. But I mean, the chance they're taking is they're breaking up what has been a very good team, a team that finished first in the East, but they're not good enough to win the championship. I mean, with this current lineup. So I think, and I think Danny realizes that this is not the year. I mean, I think he knew that even as they were playing so well during the regular season. But I could see where he may go, for the bonanza and make some moves so they could be in position next year and the year after.
So I have Marv Albert here on the Rich Eisen Show. Can you compare what you saw from Friday to Sunday in anything that you've called in a playoff game?
Friday was one of the most unusual games. I've never seen anything like that. Even going back to some of the Knick teams that I broadcast, like late 70s and early 80s, and even, fairly recent times. But to see a blowout like that, where a team is down by 50 points at one stretch and lose by 44, and even when the subs came on for Cleveland, I mean, they were playing hard. I mean, they maintained a 40-point lead. You just don't, you don't see scores like that. It was just incredible. It was embarrassing, as Avery Bradley said after the game. There was nothing that you would see in Game 2 that would lead to what took place last night. It's very easy to say, well, Cleveland didn't play as hard, but they did. I mean, they had a terrific first half, but I think they shot, when you fall in love with the three, I mean, they shot so well in the first half, particularly Kevin Love from downtown, and then, 2 for 17 in the second half. I mean, it shortcuts the game if you're hitting shots, but they attempted 40 in all. I just don't think you can do that on a regular basis because you're not going to continue, unless maybe you're the Golden State Warriors, where you really have, even though Cleveland and Boston both shoot the three well, but you don't have spectacular three-point shooters as the Warriors do.
Well, and then there's a sense, Marv, that the NBA needed a game like yesterday because you've got the Western Conference Finals. We all know that there's no Kawhi, no Tony Parker, and then one would think no chance. And in a league where the entire off season and then the regular season was filled up with, well, who in the world is going to try and prevent the Cavs with the now Durant joined Warriors super team from materializing in the NBA Finals, and to see just even once, just one drawing of blood when it's least expected.
You needed a compelling game. I mean, I thought Game 7 between Washington and Boston was really good, but there have not been. It's been a lot of blowouts. It's happened before. I think it's cyclical, and could happen again. But there have been shorter series. Many routes, so it was nice to see a game like that. And as you mentioned, I think Golden State, San Antonio, because of the loss of Kawhi and others, that's over. And then you're going to have a pretty long stretch between the end of the conference finals and then the NBA finals, which. It's not like the NFL where you can play every week and have all that time in between, but this is too much time for basketball.
And in terms of you hearing the echo chamber of what people are saying, Marv, are you on Twitter at all? Does anybody show you what's being said on Twitter if you're not there? Do you use that?
Once in a while. I try not. I know I'm not on Twitter.
Okay. No. You don't have like a secret account?
My kids tell me. No.
Do they?
My kids fill me in every once in a while. They insist I should be on Instagram. But I'm on Reggie Miller's Instagram so often I feel it's enough.
Because I know Costas and Al sometimes talk about what they see, but I don't think they're on it either. I don't think they're on
not. I can tell you for sure.
You could tell. Now, but you don't have a flip phone like Bob, right?
No. I am Mr. Techie compared to Bob and Al. I mean, I have my iPad is essential.
Okay.
And, of course, the iPhone. And I do have various interesting apps where we have 2 pugs, so we have talking pugs on the, important things like that in my life.
What are your pugs' names? Tell me they're Patrick.
Trixie and Madison.
What are they?
Trixie and Madison.
Trixie and Madison. Is there any specific? Is there any
I
specific?
wish they could talk. You see so many movies about talking pets, but I always wonder what would they be saying? What would their voice sound like?
Okay. So I just was wondering, what the significance of the dogs. I thought maybe Chris Stapps would be the one pug, and
yeah, that'd be a good one.
I don't know.
Yeah, we do follow Latvian basketball very closely.
And Madison, is that for the garden? Is that at least we got that?
No. It's just names that my wife has come up with after a great, extensive study. And that's basically it. But you should get the animal talking app.
Okay.
I recommend it. Now I have nothing to do with it.
Okay.
It if you want to
it's entertainment.
Bother people particularly, it's very good if you want to annoy anybody.
That's fantastic. Marv, appreciate the time. We'll chat down the line. I love listening to you, and I don't care sharing this stuff. My kids are watching now. They're 8 and 6, and I'm like, when I was your age, I was listening to this man, and I'm a sportscaster because of it, and it's the truth.
Thank you very much. I was 12 at that time.
I know.
So I started very
it's
early.
remarkable how early you did start your career.
It really is.
I don't mean to date anything, but it's a treasure that I'm able to share that with my kids. So appreciate you calling.
Thanks.
You
Thanks,
bet.
Rich.
You got it. That's Marv Albert here on the Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on radio stations across the country and audience.
Isn't it amazing you can download an app with your thumbprint? You should download our app with your thumbprint.